faster. All right, recording and switching to the magical whiteboard. There we are. There we are. Okay. All right. And there we are. Okay. All right. So a quick recap. What chapter 8 does, it says, look, the overall aggregate demand consists of several spendings. First, done by consumer, second, by businesses, then by government, and then here comes our trading account. So what chapter 8 does, it looks at every one of these groups and finds the pressure points. All right, and today, right now, we're starting with business, investment, expenditure. These fancy words address the spending done by businesses to enhance their production, whether it's retraining employee, whether it's buying equipment, whether expanding the business. Every time you spend any money on your own business, it's called investments, and it's part of capital I. Okay, so what could possibly move businesses to invest more or less, right? First, the very important factor in businesses, it's how you feel about tomorrow. Business, confidence. It is in a way probably the funniest factor of all because it's based on your feelings. How do you feel about tomorrow? Feelings are not measurable, okay? So we can't say, today I'm feeling 50% better than tomorrow. Well, we can say that, but when it comes to business confidence, businesses are either confident about tomorrow or not confident, okay? If confident about tomorrow, meaning I'm going to start a new project and I know it will go well. Okay, then I go ahead and invest. If not confident about tomorrow, okay, here's I have a project, but something tells me it's not going to work out. I feel like I'm going to lose money on this project, right? Then processing this information, my decision would be not to invest if I am not confident about tomorrow. And invest, meaning take a loan and start working on enhancement of your business. Not investing is not taking a loan and going as before without expansion or enhancement of your business. Okay? Second, of course, that first factor will depend on the demand for goods and services that I produce. Ooh, demand. Okay? Remember what I keep saying? The only reason you see goods and services offered for sale to you is because somebody demands them. Okay? So the demand. When I look at the current demand and it's pretty high or increasing, then yeah, I feel good about expanding. I'm going to take a loan and I'm going to expand. Demand increases. Yeah, I will be able to sell a greater production so I can start expanding. Open a second office, hire more people, buy new equipment. Okay? If what I see is quite the opposite, if fewer and fewer people come into my store, or fewer and fewer orders come through the internet, or fewer and fewer people are calling in on a daily basis, I feel like my product or my services are not in demand. If demand is dropping, I am definitely not going to expand. I'm not going to buy new equipment. I'm not going to hire more people. Chances are, with lower demand, I will probably cut on the current production. So therefore drop in investments. Okay, that's how important the demand is. It's extremely important, probably more important than anything else. Another factor that will help me to decide to borrow and invest or not to invest in my production is where are we now technologically wise, okay? Technological progress, okay? Remember what it means, a more sophisticated equipment. If you can think of a PPF, a technological breakthrough will push that frontier further out, creates greater production possibilities, okay? Higher efficiency. And that almost always means lower cost, higher profits, right? So any technological breakthrough, okay, will create this desire by businesses to borrow more and invest, buy new equipment more sophisticated, okay? Number 4 is the interest rate, real interest rate. Okay, real interest rate as in this is the interest rate I am paying on business loans. Okay, that's an extra amount as a thank you for letting me use your funds note. Okay, here is a principal loan itself, and there is an interest rate. Okay, when I take a loan, I as a business, I will have to pay additional amount on that loan that we call interest rate. Extra amount on top of the business loan, okay? So how does it work? And we use lower case I to denote the interest rate. If interest rate increases, that extra amount that I have to pay to the bank lender increases as well, right? But that extra amount is gonna come out from my expected profit. So if it's gonna cost me more to expand, maybe I shouldn't expect at all, right? If borrowing becomes so expensive, maybe I should wait. If banks are announcing that they're dropping interest rate on all kinds of loans, then that extra amount that I have to pay on top of the original loan gets smaller. So through my expectations, of course, they're going to say, show us your business plan. Of course, I have a business plan. This is how much profit I expect to get from this project, the project I'm borrowing money for. And if the extra amount from the profit gets smaller, I'll get to keep a large part of expected profit for me. Of course, I'm happy. Of course, I'm going to go ahead and borrow, right? And the last one is tax provision on capital gains. Taxes on capital gains. Remember we talked about taxes on capital gains when we talked about capital structure, right? So capital gain, any profit that you make on your investment. And of course, all investment earnings or the income from investments is taxed. Okay. So if that tax rate increases, that means it will lower my expected gain. That's definitely not going to make me happy. Okay. And it doesn't have to be every time you expand your business, you take your loan to support your business production, you're investing in yourself. So the profit you derive from this new project, that's your capital gain. And if you have to take a larger portion from that expected gain and give it away, because that's what taxes are, we just give away money, You're not going to be happy. Nobody's going to be happy. Okay. Larger capital gain taxes are known to be reducing investment expenditure because it just doesn't make any sense for businesses to keep investing in this in themselves if the taxes are so high. But on the other hand, tax on capital gain. No. If those taxes are reduced as they were, capital gain, I'm trying to write nicely. Okay. Okay. If tax on capital gains, if those taxes were if those taxes were to be reduced, then it will make every investor and all investors are happier, right? Because it's my time, it's my money. I'm taking the risk to whether buy bonds or stocks or just invest in my business. I want to be rewarded for this hard work. I want to be rewarded for the risk I'm taking. And if I'm getting larger portion of my expected gain to keep to myself, heck, that's going to make me very happy, right? So yeah, I'll go invest. As a matter of fact, I might invest more. So this is what we have. We have 5 reasons or 5 factors that will make businesses to invest more or invest less. And these are the pressure points, okay? How do I mean? Well, taxes are set by the government, right? It's up to the government to increase or decrease taxes. So here is your pressure point. Interest rate, we'll get to the discussion of the interest rate, but the interest rate is set by the US central bank. It could go up or could go down, okay? Technological progress is hard to call a pressure point, okay? Because technological improvements keep coming up, and it could be speed up or slow down depending how much resources available to work on, right? So that's also. And demand, we'll be talking about policies when the government can support an increase in demand or push the demand down. That's why I call these factors pressure points, because they could be changed, altered by a specific government policy to move or to direct business spending in a specific area, whether to increase or to decrease. Okay? Any questions? No? Okay. So aggregate demand. Capital C stands for money that consumers spend, and we talked about it on Tuesday. Capital I stands for money that businesses spend. Then we're looking at capital G and net exports. So the next component in spending is capital G, that stands for government expenditure. And believe it or not, this is the easiest component of all the 4 on the right-hand side, because there are no pressure points, okay? Who tells government how much to spend? They decide themselves. The government decides how much to spend. Okay, so really there is no excitement to talk about government expenditure. It's quite boring component because there are no pressure points. Okay, they have the budget, they approve the budget, and on they go with the budget. Okay, what we can say is, okay, remember the COVID relief checks? That's a government expenditure. This is what we're observing right now. The government expenditure that tries to move the aggregate demand up. Okay. Right. Okay. Excuse me. Any questions? We're literally currently observing an increase in government expenditure through the 3rd stimulus check. Okay, that's exactly what it is. So here's a question. I don't remember whether we discussed it or not at the beginning of chapter 8, but so what? We know all the pressure points. Now what? Hey, well, any economy and every economy operates at the equilibrium at any point in time. What does it mean? That means in any given day, aggregate demand is balanced out by aggregate supply. Total demand, total production, or output. Okay? An economy is characterized by its level of output or GDP. Okay? If I'm saying, oh, look at this economy, it's shrinking in, its GDP is decreasing quarter after quarter after quarter, we call it a recession. Or look at this economy, GDP is increasing and increasing, the economy is booming. GDP is the major indicator what is happening with the economy, okay? So to be able to understand why GDP changes, okay? Because GDP always reflects the total demand. If the total demand changes, GDP will change as well. If aggregate demand drops, GDP will drop. If aggregate demand increases, GDP will follow and increase, okay? But aggregate demand is a collection of these factors, you see? But it also balanced out by the output. And aggregate supply stands for total production, total GDP, or we use capital Y for GDP, okay? So basically, look what we have. Through a simple manipulation and substitution, look what we have. The output is defined by the level of total demand, and the total demand is defined by these components, okay? So we can simplify this expression by simply stating that the C plus I plus G plus net experts, all of them combined, define the current output. C plus I plus G plus net experts, okay? Total output, total demand. A simple statement of the equilibrium for the entire condition, for the entire economy. Now, again, why is it so important for us to understand these pressure points? Here, look what happens if we all would just stop spending, okay? As we did in March 2020, exactly 12 months ago. We couldn't go out as we used to. We couldn't go to restaurants and eat. We couldn't, at some point, we had to order groceries through internet, okay? So it's not the same ordering groceries through internet as you go into a store and look at all these goods available, and usually we buy more than we plan, don't we? There is nothing wrong with that. That's human nature, okay? So if the spending that is represented by one of the four components on the right-hand side shrinks, its value shrinks. To keep the equality as equality, the left-hand side value must shrink as well. And that's exactly what we noticed during April, May, and June of the last year. The GDP shrunk by 30%. We have never seen anything like that because all of a sudden people stopped traveling, stopped spending, stopped going out and eating, stopped entertaining themselves, right? But why should we keep an eye on the output? Well, remember, output is directly related to the usage of labor force. If output is dropping, some of the workers will not be needed at their workplaces. People are going to lose their jobs. Okay? So here is the logical chain. Changes in the aggregate demand on this side will create changes on the left-hand side, and the changes in output will create changes in the usage of labor force. Okay, and what's more important for us than to hold a job so we can bring a paycheck home? You see, this is what we're trying to understand. Okay, how can a policy affect the values of C or I or G or net expert to a such extent that GDP is going to be affected and the labor force usage will be affected? Okay, we already talked about C and I and G. So we're down to the very last component. Okay, net experts, US net experts, which is US experts minus US imports. Okay. Okay. Experts minus imports. Okay. Now, what I would like you to take out of this class, besides some stuff that got stuck with you, is everything in this world depends on our demand for goods and services. Okay? All right? So for example, look at experts. Experts stands for US country selling its goods to foreign consumers. Therefore, experts represents demand for US made goods and services by foreign consumers. Yes? Is there a question? Okay, so experts is when we sell US made stuff to foreign consumers, get money instead. Imports is the opposite. It's a demand that comes from US consumers for foreign made stuff. Okay, all right, just to refresh. But the reason we can demand and consume is our income, right? So whether we sell the stuff to other countries or buy their stuff depends whether we have enough of income to spend on it, okay? So the very first factor that defines the value of US net exports is national incomes. National incomes. Remember what we said, what those are. National incomes are aggregated gross paychecks to every worker in the entire country. All gross paychecks combined in a country. Okay, right? So first factor, whether we sell our stuff to other country or not, will depend on whether their income is large enough to demand our goods, okay? So what you need to think, the way you should think about exports or imports, it's a two-sided transaction, okay? Somebody is making stuff and selling it to somebody else. So that we will always have two parties involved in a trading transaction. Okay? So let's start, okay? Let's first build enough of reasoning to understand how it works. So national incomes, our gross income, combined gross income throughout the country. It's easy for us to get the national incomes for the US But for other countries, we can't. National incomes are not public domain information. As a matter of fact, national incomes are private information for every country. So how do we go about it? I mean, we have to understand how the trading works. This is where the national income identity kicks in, okay? National income identity states that national incomes, which is all our gross income combined, is an equivalent in value to GDP, always, therefore the triple equality. Okay? When you see an expression with triple equality, it doesn't look like triple equality, let me make it triple equality. A statement that includes a triple equality is called an identity. That means it's true all the time. It doesn't have to be proven. It's not a theorem, okay? It's true all the time. So where does this national income identity takes us? Well, if we can get this information on national incomes from other countries, what we can get instead, that's right, there are GDP levels. That's right, that's exactly what we're going to be using in substitution for national incomes, okay? Or Y's. We use capital Y to denote GDP. So there, let's start with US, or GDP for now. Our national income is increasing. Your gross paychecks are growing. What does it mean? Yeah, even if we have to pay larger portion of our larger paycheck through taxes, there's still going to be more money left for us in disposable incomes. And that means we get to spend more. We get to spend more on US made goods and foreign made goods. And that demand, higher spending, means the country will have to buy more foreign made goods. So US imports increases. That's the logical progression of the thought. If we want to spend more, we have to buy more. They have to sell us more, okay? Now, exports, imports. What we buy from them is US imports, right? But what they sell to us is their exports. And I'm just going to use the letter F for foreign exports. Okay, right? This is where our logic takes us. Now, let's run the same logical chain for a foreign country. GDP for a foreign country increases. That means they're getting paid more in gross terms. Paying higher taxes still will give them, foreign country, higher disposable income, which will make them spend more. They will be increasing consumer expenditure. Their consumer expenditure means they will be buying more of their domestically produced goods and more of goods produced outside, including the US. So they would want to import more, but their import, okay, think about it. What they buy from us is our exports. Okay. All right. Okay. It does require some mental assistance in the process, but once you work through these two chains, everything else will be easier. So if you need to take additional time, I will strongly suggest revisit this lecture, Okay, trading questions are always complicated, always, and you will see, we're going to run some simulations, okay? So I strongly suggest you revisit this part of the lecture that deals with explanations why US imports increasing or why foreign exports are increasing, okay? Now let's run another simulation in the opposite direction, a drop in US GDP, right? Okay. Our gross payment, our gross paychecks went down. That means our disposable income will be reduced and our spending will be reduced too. We can't spend more than we earn, okay? What does it mean? That means we will be demanding fewer domestically made goods and fewer foreign made goods. Okay, wait a minute. US imports, that's right. US imports, okay, will have to shrink, but US imports is another country exports. So foreign exports shrinks as well. Okay. Right? And we can run the same logical simulation for a foreign country. Drop in their GDPs will also reduce those countries, foreign country, FC stands for foreign country, reduce their disposable incomes and their abilities to spend. So they will be demanding fewer units of their domestically made goods and goods that come from abroad, including US. So the foreign imports will shrink, and that means US exports will shrink. Okay, right? Any questions? No? Okay, all right. So let's run a simulation, okay? Let's say, okay, this is going to be a very hard one, so listen carefully. Actually, any trading question is a complicated and confusing one, so please listen carefully, okay? First, I'm going to write down the question in words, then we need to translate those words into concepts we're familiar with and can deal with, okay? Here, we have two countries. I'm going to make it up question, make this question up completely from scratch. So we have US trading, let's say with Canada, okay? The two countries, neighbors through the border, right? Let's say that US is expanding economically faster than Canada. How this unequal expansion affects US net exports and Canadian net exports. Let's write it down. If US is expanding faster than Canada, then how would US net exports change due to these conditions, and how would Canadian net exports change? Okay, right? Change, let's see. Am I writing it right? Change, NGE, okay? A very short question. Now, do not be fooled by shortness of a question about trade, okay? Net expert, right there. You read this one-liner and you're thinking, how can I possibly answer this question? I don't even know where to start. That's why we need to translate that one-liner into terms we're comfortable with, okay? First, US economy is expanding faster than Canadian economy. We know that the best representation of any economy is it's GDP. So we can say GDP of US is growing by a lot, whereas Canadian, oh, let me keep, whereas Canadian is growing just a little bit. See the difference in the arrow? Great arrow for US and small for Canada, okay? So that's the condition of the question. How do we handle the question? It's still confusing. Well, the best way to solve any trading question is to use the definition for US net exports or just for net exports. And we know that US net exports is US exports minus US imports. The same definition holds for net exports of any other country. Therefore, for Canada, it's going to be the same. Okay? So all we need to do is to realize how this affects US exports, US imports, Canadian exports, and Canadian imports. Okay? Seems like a lot of work. It's not, right? Please pay attention, follow carefully the reasoning, and you will see it's not really that bad. Okay? Now, let's start with US. US GDP is increasing tremendously. Okay, what does it mean? That means our gross income increasing, our disposable income increasing, our spending increasing. Therefore, our demand for foreign goods and services increases as well by a lot. And foreign goods and services are US imports, right? A great increase in US imports from Canada, including Canada, okay? But remember, our imports is their exports. So whatever change we apply to US imports, we should apply the same change to Canadian exports because US imports and Canadian exports, the two ends of the same transaction, okay? If we're buying more, then we'll be selling more. Right? Now, okay, let's look at the Canadian. Their GDP is increasing too, but just by a little, okay? So their gross income increases by a little. Their disposable income increases by a little. Their consumer expenditure increases by a little. They're demanding a little bit more of their domestic goods and foreign goods, including US. So Canadian imports increases, but just by a little. At the same time, Canadian imports is US exports. So whatever change we produce for Canadian imports will be applied to US exports right there. Okay? Now, all we need to do is to figure out how these changes, analytical changes, affect the final result, net exports. Okay? All right, now, you can do it logically, or you can use numbers to assign, okay? So this number is increasing a little bit. This number is increasing tremendously, okay? So the residual will have to decrease, okay? Let's look at the Canadian. Look at this tremendous increase, okay? The number we're subtracting from is increasing greatly. The number we're subtracting is just a little bit. So here we are, okay? And this is the answer to the question, okay? Okay, it is a little bit confusing with the large arrow and small arrow. So regular questions are actually include the movement of GDPs in the opposite direction or the reasoning in the opposite direction. And that's why we have a couple of more examples, okay? Now, the second reason we might want to consider buying goods outside the US, prices, right? Prices. So let's just for a moment assume all the countries, okay? It's a very strong assumption and it's kind of insolent one, but it's okay. We can deal with it. Let's assume all the countries deal in dollars, okay? So here we're looking at the computers that we could buy made in US. I'm making up stuff. Say gonna cost us $3,000. But the very same computer, if we could buy from Mexico, is only $1,000. See the difference, right? 3,000 in US, 1,000 outside in Mexico. Exactly the same computer. Why pay 3 times more? You know, consumers' preferences, the cheaper the better. Let's go and buy that Mexican computer, okay? Relative prices. Relative prices. Basically, we're a comparer inside US prices with prices outside. Okay? And that's, when you think about it, it's not really as the same example, when you go shopping online, Amazon, right? What are you looking for? You're looking for the lowest price possible. You don't care where the good is coming from, okay? Right? You want to get the lowest possible price. That's exactly what it is, right? So here, let's run a simulation. Here is a question. Here is a question. US inflation is the highest in the world. US inflation is the highest in the world. If this is the case, how that the highest inflation in the US affects US net exports and the foreign country net exports, okay? Now, first things first, what do we do with this verbal expression? We are going to rewrite it. US prices are higher than anywhere else in the world. So US goods are the most expensive, okay? Let's go back to the definition of net exports and a foreign country net exports, right? Doesn't matter. Mexico, Canada, anywhere else in the world. It is cheaper anywhere else in the world than in US. So let's look at this condition from US consumers. $3,000 for a computer if we buy it inside the US, or $1,000 if we buy exactly the same computer, exactly the same technical characteristics, exactly the same package in Mexico. Which one are we going to buy? The Mexican one, of course, right? What does it mean? We will be demanding more of foreign made goods. So US imports increases, right? More foreign, buy anywhere else, but not inside the US. But remember, US imports is the end of the transaction that starts as a foreign country export. Oops, that's not what I meant. Let me, US, there we go, okay. All right. If US imports increases, exactly the same change must be applied to a foreign country exports. Now, let's look at foreign country consumers. How do they feel about goods that they were thinking of buying from US when everything is more expensive? No, they don't want those goods, right? Why buy such expensive goods when they could find cheaper ones? So foreign imports from US that comes from US will shrink, and US exports will shrink as well, okay? So all we need to do is, look, this number is decreasing, getting smaller, this number is increasing. So the overall impact on net exports is a decrease. For a foreign country, this number is increasing, this one decreasing, okay? Okay, so that's the question. That was our question. This is our answer, okay? But of course, different countries have their own currencies. The world does not operate based on the US dollar. It is considered to be a world currency along with the European Union euros. But at the end of the day, if we want to buy something from New Zealand or Australia or Canada or Mexico, we have to pay for that purchase in the country seller's currency. Okay, so exchange rates. Exchange rates. Okay, let us use ER, not the emergency room, ER for exchange rate. Let's first define the exchange rates. Exchange rates are prices of different countries' currencies in terms of our domestic currency. Are prices of one country currency in terms of another country currency. Okay, an example. How many US dollars it will take to buy 1 British sterling pounds? 1 pound, okay? You can go on Google search engine and you will type exchange rate between pounds and US dollars. I have, okay, 1 British pound. Okay. For us, US consumers, to buy 1 British pound, we need to bring $1.29 to the exchange point, whether it's your local bank or somewhere in the city or at the airport or when you land at the UK. Okay. That's $1.29 is the price of 1 pound. Right? So an exchange rate is always presented as a ratio between two currencies. Okay? So when we think about buying foreign-made stuff, we think that in terms of an exchange rate. How many dollars it's going to take us to buy that pair of shoes from Great Britain? Okay? We look at the exchange rate and we translate British pound price into the US dollars, and then we make a decision. Let's say 1 pair of British fancy shoes, okay, goes for what? 50 pounds. I mean, that price doesn't tell us anything. We need to translate that. So British pounds times 129 US dollar. This is how many dollars it takes to buy 1 pound. So now, let me get my calculator. 50 times 129. Okay, 50 times 129 give us 64.5 US dollars. Okay, we are translating the foreign country price using the exchange rate into our domestic currency. That's why we need exchange rates. Exchange rates, look what it says, prices. And if you think of a currency as a normal good, as in bread, gas, those prices are determined through the demand and supply for the foreign currency. What does it mean? That means if the price is derived from the equilibrium intersection of the demand and supply curve, that equilibrium changes as those curves change their position. Okay, what does it mean? That means that one day we can see this exchange rate, another day we can see this exchange rate, and another day we can see this exchange rate. The exchange rates between different currencies are changing on a daily basis. Okay? So how do we decide? Do we buy the foreign goods or not? It's probably largely depends on the exchange rates. Okay. Now, I want you to look at this exchange rate versus this exchange rate, right? Look, the first one, the first exchange, the first exchange rate tells us we need to bring $1.29 to buy 1 pound. The second tells us we need to bring $1.50, which is greater than $1.29. So a movement like that tells us we need to bring more domestic currency. This is when we say that US dollar depreciates against pound. US dollar depreciates against British pound. Depreciation means getting weaker. As it gets weaker, its value drops. We need to bring more of US dollars. Okay? Right? Now, the third day, look, the value went from $1.50 to just $1. Yesterday, we had to spend $1.50 to buy 1 pound. Today, we need to spend only $1. The exchange rate went down. We have to bring fewer US dollars to buy 1 pound. In this case, we're going to say that US dollar appreciates. US dollar appreciates against British pound. Okay? That's are the changes that are happening constantly, all the time. Okay? So one day you will see, right? Look at this one. Okay. Yesterday, it could cost you $64.50 to buy 1 pair of shoes. Today, it could cost you only $50. Nothing has happened to the shoes. No change in value of the shoes, no any change with the shoes. It's just the exchange rate between the two countries' currencies has changed. That's what changed the paying value for us as consumers. Okay? So let's take this and run the last simulation for this chapter. Let's see what happens to US net exports and to UK net exports if, let's see, US dollar depreciates against pound. US net exports, UK net exports if US dollar depreciates. Depreciates. Against UK pound, okay? How we can tell? We'll bring the definition back again, whereas US net exports is US exports minus US imports, and UK net exports is UK exports minus UK, too much writing, UK imports. Okay, all we need to do is just bring our understanding of depreciation of US currency depreciation. Okay, let me use different. So first, let's look at UK stuff. So depreciation. Our currency is getting weaker. That is an increase in the exchange rate. This increase. Okay. From a smaller number of dollars to a larger number of dollars. What this will do, everything we buy from UK will be more expensive now. Not because goods are better, no, because of the change in the exchange rate. Remember consumers' preferences, we do not like increase in price. And who needs those British shoes anyway, right? So from US consumers' point of view, those imported goods from Great Britain, no. Too expensive. But if we are not buying their stuff, they can't sell it to us. Remember, US imports and UK exports, the two ends of the same transaction. So whatever changes you bring to US imports those same changes must be applied to UK experts. Now, let's look at the British consumers. From their point of view, their pound could buy much more right now than it used to be. So yeah, they're loving the depreciation of US dollars. They want to buy more of it, so much more, so they can enjoy it, okay? And if they're buying more, we'll have to sell more, okay? And now, an increase in US exports, a larger number, a first larger number, a smaller second number, and we'll see an increase in US net exports. For UK, it will be quite opposite. A drop in their first number, an increase in their second number, it makes their net exports shrink. Okay. You guys are so quiet. Is there anybody still alive out there? Or I completely lost you with the trading simulations? Anybody? I know it could be overwhelming, right? That's why you will find that trade classes are somewhat complicated, and I, for one, don't like teaching trade at all, because look how complicated it is, even at the principal levels, okay? So if you're trying to select which part of it I should understand and remember, go for the exchange rates, okay? Go for the exchange rate anytime, because you will run into depreciation or appreciation of domestic currency almost on daily basis, okay? So if you have to choose, if the time of a constraint issue, concentrate on the very last example we just did, okay? So this is the end of chapter 8. If you don't have any questions, I would like to help you out a little bit with homework number 4. This homework number, oh, not 7, 4. Wow. Homework 4, I believe, I think it says it's due April 1st by 11:30 p.m. And of course, it's an online homework, okay? Did anybody, now guys, I want you to switch your mics back on, and just so we could have some kind of a conversation, okay? Because talking to a quiet screen is a little bit kind of funny. I don't know if I'm getting through or not, okay? So anybody, did any of you looked at homework number 4?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Thank you for turning on the mic. So homework number 4 is exclusively on chapter 8, on this chapter. It talks about MPC, it talks about shifting the consumption function, and some of the net experts questions, okay? So with net experts, you just have to get through it, okay? But with MPC, here, I don't really remember specific questions, but I can make up any questions. So let's say, here's the question runs. Let's say a country's income increases by, what do we have here? Okay, if a country, oh, what is that? Interesting. If a country income increases by 200 billion, and the country spending, consumer spending, and the country's consumer spending, NG, increases by 180 billion. then what is the country's MPC? Okay. Okay. So the formula for the MPC involves only 3 numbers. Change in C over change in disposable income. Okay. That's the only formula. Every time you read a question about MPC, that's the formula you keep coming back to. There is only one formula that involves MPC. And every time I ask you about MPC related questions, out of this formula, I will always give you 2 numbers and will ask you to find the third one. Okay, so I'm going to switch to my red pen. So to find the MPC clearly, right, we need to have 2 numbers. First, we have a change in C, and that's exactly what we have, right? 180 billions. Then we need to find the change in DI, and it's right here. So you just take 180 over 200, and the answer is, what is it, 0.9. Okay. So in this case, MPC is 0.9. Okay. It is really just a matter of understanding the numbers from the given question. Here, let's do another one. If a country's disposable income drops, what I have, by 120 billion, okay, and the country's consumer expenditure drops by 80 billion, what is the country MPC? Okay, you see how easy it is once you understand the formula? Here is your denominator, here is your numerator. So MPC, again, change in C over change in disposable income, which is what we have, 80 over 120. 80 over 120 gives us, all right, approximately 0.67. Okay, weird numbers, really weird numbers. Okay, all right. Again, every time you have an MPC question, this is the formula. This is the formula you want to go to. Okay. Do you guys have any questions about these 2 numerical examples?
Not me.
Okay. Okay. So another bunch of questions is based on your understanding of shifting the consumption function. Okay. Shifting the consumption function. And what I did, because I can't very well ask you to draw and shift the function when you're looking at the screen, right? I have to give you some kind of a prop. And here is a prop that you're probably going to see. Disposable income, consumer expenditure. Okay. Let's see. So let's make them longer. There. Point E. Oh, it's not. Okay. Point E. Point D. Point C, B, and point A. Okay. All of this is to help you to find the right point combination. I know it sounds even more confusing. So remember we talked about moving along the consumption function versus shifting the consumption function. Here is a question. income tax increase. How will that affect the consumption function? Okay, we know that income tax will affect the disposable income, and income tax increase, our disposable income is going to drop, and a change in disposable income will move us down along the consumption function. So now let us look at all the combination of the points. From A to B is a movement down. From D to E is a movement down. So we have two possible answers. From A to B and from D to E. Okay, you see all these dots, E, D, C, B, D, is to show me the beginning of the point, movement, and the end of the point. Okay, let's do number 2. A price increase. How would a price increase affect the consumption function? Okay, how exactly? Well, we know a price is a shifting factor. A higher price and the consumption function, a consumption function, shifts down. So we need to look at this picture and find a couple of points that describing a shift of the consumption down, consumption function down. So look, from B to C, right? From C to D, or from D to C. So from B to C, one answer. From C to D, the second answer. And from B to D, another possible answer. That's why I showed you 3 different consumption functions, so you could take a pick. Okay, all right. Any questions? Anybody? No? Okay, okay. I just wanted to remind you that there are 2 attempts at every homework. If you completed the first attempt and you like your grade, you do not have to take the second attempt. Okay? And after every attempt, you can see which questions you got wrong. All right?
I have one question.
Sure.
Oh, you're talking about if like the tax increases, disposable income will go down.
Yes.
Okay, so like if the question was just talking about, because I did look at the homework, so if it's talking just about like disposable income, then if there's an increase in disposable income, then it would be the points are going down.
Increase or decrease in disposable income?
An increase in disposable income.
Increase. Okay, then for an increase, let me get a purple one. An increase, you will be moving up along the consumption function. So it would be from E to D or from B to A. You see?
Okay, okay.
See?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's why I kind of throwing you a bunch of points at you. And of course, everybody get confused. Yeah, I get that. That's the disadvantage of not being able to simply say, here, get a piece of paper and just draw, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? All right then. I'm going to stop overwhelming you with all this information. Okay. And